As with most cereals nowadays, autumn nitrogen is not regarded as an advantage. On the contrary, it could cause problems later.
We use no autumn nitrogen, and we definitely wouldn't recommend any.
Right.
The crop has got a low requirement for nitrogen, and we don't want to produce too lush autumn growth going into the winter.
When it comes to herbicides, the agronomists admit that they still have a lot to learn. However, as with any new crop, as experience grows, effective solutions can be found. Richard Palmer has not found growing winter linseed a challenge that is insurmountable.
Again, it's early days, but at the moment we've been taking it fairly carefully. We've been concentrating mainly on grassweed control in the autumn, because most of the farms where we're interested in growing winter linseed, we would be having blackgrass problems, for example, and we feel that it's important to put the main emphasis on controlling the blackgrass. So we've been looking at graminicides in the autumn and hoping that we can leave the broadleaf weed control until the spring. But there may be circumstances where we may have to look at controlling broadleaf weeds in the autumn as well.
There is no agronomy blueprint for winter linseed. It's developing all the time. It is a new crop. There is a learning curve. So I think the best thing to say would be to consult your agronomist or Sumundo on any herbicide, pesticide or fungicide program that you're thinking about.
Winter linseed open days are popular with agronomists as a way of keeping up with the latest thinking. Written material which contains new developments is constantly being updated to keep the grower right up to date.
Sumundo are obviously taking a very responsible attitude with this crop. They're trying to get as much information to us as quickly as they can. The crop has demanded a great deal of attention, and I think these sort of days are extremely useful.
Spring crop, because of the different weed spectrum, the crop out there.
So much for weed control. Going back to nitrogen, the experts have already given autumn nitrogen a definite thumbs down. But what about nitrogen in the spring?
Well, nitrogen, we have experience of using gentle quantities of nitrogen on the spring crop, and in the winter crop I think we've been happy to say that I think levels should be perhaps moderate, because we don't really know the full potential. So we've probably kept our dressings at around about the 60 kilograms per hectare level, maybe a little bit more where there are fields of low fertility.
As far as lodging is concerned, it's still early days. The fledgling winter linseed acreage is yet to see a really wet British summer. But early signs are encouraging.
To date, we haven't seen any lodging at all in any of our crops. Of course, some of the seasons have not been favourable to lodging conditions, so we don't really know the risk associated with lodging, but it is potentially a serious problem. So the only lodging we're likely to encounter is where a mistake has perhaps been made in the nitrogen application, or a crop is being grown in an extremely fertile situation.
With so few problems with lodging thus far, agronomists have not yet seen a great need for the use of growth regulators. And in these early days, knowledge of their impact is still far from complete. When it comes to harvest, few would deny that linseed doesn't have exactly the best of reputations. But Richard Gregory does not see harvest problems as a serious disadvantage.
Normally we've been experiencing the crop coming to harvest at the end of last week in July. This year is slightly later. There are two reasons for that. First of all, the season has been slightly later, although it has caught up dramatically. I mean, flowering was about 3.5 weeks late, and yet here we are harvesting and we're only a few days late. The other thing which has delayed things also is the rapeseed harvest has been delayed, and that crop is much more vulnerable to harvest losses. So all the farmers have been concentrating on getting in the winter rape to start with, and for that very reason they have delayed harvesting the winter linseed, which is not vulnerable to harvest losses, for a few days. So it could have been harvested even this year, probably in the last few days of July.
Certainly, it's important to have your machine set up correctly for the job. Over the past few years, Alan Pace has become something of an expert.
To set it up, I had to change my knife to a new knife and then close the drum right up. We had to alter that because the setting in the book said 10mm, but the linseed were going through, so we had to sort of shut it up to about 4 to thrash it out. Once you thrash it out, you're well away. You just alter your sieves to get your sample. Unless that sun's out, you could spend all day and not achieve nothing. But then as soon as the sun come out, you could do as much in 2 hours as you could all day. So, I mean, we spray our linseed off now, and that's a big help. Because if it's all dead, the knife would go straight through and cut it. But other than that, you have to wait till it dies. As long as it's going in the front and thrashing it, right, you don't want to lose your linseed over the back. Therefore, you have to have your sieves open enough to catch these heads that ain't thrashed, and then return them back into the combine and hope they get thrashed next time through. So you have to have your sieve open on the top fairly wide, and then you can fine-tune your bottom sieve to catch your seed. But you don't want to go airing off the field like and do 200 or 300 yards and then find out you've lost quite a bit. Once you've done your sieve settings and all that, it's just check on elevators, under the drum and all that, if it's leaking, and we use silicone, just silicone them up. Other than that, tape.
So how did the crop yield this year?
Samunda were extremely pleased with the overall yield of Oliver. It was about 2 tonnes per hectare on average, but with the highest yielding crops being 3.4 tonnes per hectare. I think probably the yields were slightly lower than we had anticipated, but that has been partly put down to the dry spring, which affected seed formation, and also a late infection of botrytis, particularly in the south-southwest.
We're extremely excited about the prospects for the crop. It's mainly the consistency of performance and the earliness of harvest which are of paramount interest. Those two major advantages put together, we think, extends the crop onto a much wider range of soil types and also into much wider geographical areas within the country.
I think the yield reliability is going to be extremely good from these crops. I'd be surprised if we don't get a tonne an acre as a minimum yield. I think the future for this crop from a farmer's viewpoint is excellent. Very, very enthusiastic about it.
With the market that we've developed for linseed oil, then customers are obviously taking it regularly throughout the year. We're then processing it throughout the year, and we like to see an orderly marketing of linseed so that we can then have regular deliveries. A problem will come if farmers want to market all of the linseed at harvest, because physically we can't take it into the factory all at once. So we need to have it spread out throughout the year.
You've got a crop there which could be very profitable as a break crop, an exciting crop because it gives you an early entry for wheat, but let's try and make it perform as well as it can do. And I think the problem with linseed in the past is that people have chucked it in the ground and forgotten it, and not really treated it as a serious crop to grow for yield. So I think see how much you can get out of it by managing it.
It's a very interesting crop, and I think they want a crop that they can establish fairly consistently. And we've also got a crop that can be harvested in early summer or midsummer and can give us an excellent entry into wheat. So we are taking the view that it is a crop that farmers will wish to take up.
Linseed is, I believe, in deficit in the community, and we import a lot from Canada, and there's a lot we can do to grow our own linseed here. So I think this crop has got a lot of potential for the future and carry us well into the next century.
We've been crushing linseed for over 80 years, and we expect the future to be even longer. Linseed oil in the UK has a good demand, not only for domestic users of linseed, but also because we're producing a good quality linseed oil, then we've developed good export markets for the product as well.